What's going on, gamers? So we have a very interesting article here about some things regarding the Dark Souls franchise all the way up to Elden Ring and starting off with Demon Souls and how Demon Souls did start off between FromSoftware and Sony, but what actually happened after that uh, down the line. Right here in this article, this is very interesting. It says FromSoftware didn't want Sony to publish Dark Souls as it was disappointed by how Demon Souls was treated. This is the meat of the video that starts off right here, and then we're going to get to other topics and see why Bloodborne was not remastered yet, or remade, or even put on PC. What the reason for that behind, and what Shuhei Shida's theory is. Then I'm going to interject from myself as well why I think that that type of stuff happened. So let's start off with Demon Souls, where it all started. Or we can go back to Kingsfield, but that's different though. We need to start with the Souls aspects. But yeah, if y'all didn't know about that, they had games back then that are kind of like building on that blueprint. It was rough, kind of like how Monster Hunter 1 was rough coming from the PSO blueprint. And they weren't that good. They were like lowly rated, and it was very, very, very like janky and clunky. If you think it is now, the back then was totally different. So it says it's claimed FromSoftware teamed up with Bandai Namco because Sony didn't publish Demon Souls in the West. And I'm going to tell you right now, even looking at the way things are lately, I can give you one idea. Their vision is poor. This is nothing new with them. Sometimes they can have very poor vision. Nintendo has great vision. Let me tell you something. Did you know that Sony actually deemed the God of War to be done before they made the God of War 4 on PlayStation 4? They said it was done. There's no use for it anymore. Corey Borlaug and his team were disappointed by that. And look at what happened with God of War. Ended up selling almost around 19 million, including like PC sales and all that too. We see other things that are happening this generation too, right? Like how poor their vision has been. Jim Ryan's vision, a lot of them. Just some of the decisions they make, and then all of a sudden they're following Microsoft's vision way too many times. Always follow Nintendo's vision as well too, and then they kind of like hybridize that and mix it together, and they don't really have a true identity in themselves. They definitely don't have a Japanese identity anymore. They just now got some other people back in the Japanese leadership, but it was all Western European before it was Japanese. It's always like moving all over the place. Where it's like, what's your identity? You know what I mean? And it's like they don't really have one. Honestly, it's always changing around, and now they are in an identity crisis more than ever, and they need to do something about that. And I think we realize that. So trusting them with things, yeah, they made the right move because that means Dark Souls would have been exclusive to PlayStation this whole time, and it wouldn't have sold nowhere near as much. Same thing with Elden Ring. PC gamers would have got screwed over with that too. Xbox community too. Now let's go down here a little bit. I just wanted to state that because that's very important, and we're going to realize why Demon Souls was treated the way it was because it was not successful as it should have been, and that's because of Sony's vision on it. They didn't think much about it. Again, so we ready? FromSoftware didn't want to work on a Demon Souls sequel with Sony because it was disappointed with the way the game was handled. Former PlayStation executive Shuhei Yoshida claims. Demon Souls was developed by FromSoftware in collaboration with Sony Japan Studio, which who shut it down? Imagine, right? And they would have shut it down. Soul series would have not been where it was at. FromSoftware has vision. They were aware. I want you guys to think about how important that is, all the way up to Elden Ring and everything. Oh man, that wouldn't have been possible if it was with Sony. Good lord, man. Demon Souls was developed by them. It was planned to be the game, will be published and globally by Sony, but this didn't come to be. Although these days Demon Souls is considered the first entry in FromSoftware's popular Souls-like series of the games, I was there day one. I loved it. It is said that at the time Sony couldn't see the game's global appeal. Like I said, their vision is not all that great. Due to the game's high difficulty and negative early playtests, Sony decided not to localize Demon Souls for an English language release. Because in their mind, it was going to be a failure in Western society. What's going on right now, though? How far did it go? Yeah, it replaced the action genre. Now the action genre is trying to come back. We see Ninja Gaiden coming and all that. Like, man, yeah, because the Souls franchise is all over the place. Everybody wants Souls-like games. China, South Korea, everybody, right? Western society. Ding, 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 ding. Sony can't really see. Okay. Due to the high game's difficulty and negative early playtests, Sony decided not to localize it, as we saw. Instead, in the US, the game was published by Atlus. Yeah, we know Atlus, Persona, Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah, they're making their waves now. And in Europe, publishing was handled by Bandai Namco. Speaking to the Sacred Symbol podcast, former Sony Interactive Entertainment president Yoshida explained that Sony wanted to work on a sequel to Demon's Souls with FromSoftware, but the developer turned it down and instead decided to work with Bandai Namco on what would become Dark Souls. Best move they ever made for the future of their company. Could you imagine the other turn? You see how choices are very important in life? Bandai Namco and FromSoftware, definitely FromSoftware, they were at a crossroads. It was heaven or it was hell for their company, right? They chose heaven. They chose paradise. And look at the success it took it to. Imagine if they would have chose Sony. They would have took the wrong turn down the road. They would have pitchforked their company. Yeah. Good job FromSoftware. Good job. We need to find out the individuals whoever made that. Make sure to stay close to them because those guys can see. You know what I mean? FromSoftware was already working on the sequel, but they were so disappointed with how PlayStation treated them. We wanted to work with them again, but they passed on it, Yoshida claimed. Did we get all that? Sony would eventually work with FromSoftware again some years later with the PlayStation exclusive Bloodborne, something Yoshida said he was happy to see. Yeah, after you saw the success of Dark Souls. So they saw their vision, their choices, their success, and then what happened? Let me take this and just grab it and stick it on my console and lock it away. But where was the success at mainly? From Dark Souls, not Demon Souls. Even though people loved Demon Souls. See, with this company, man, this is what I say. So yeah, that's why Bloodborne was the way it is, and they wanted to put their IP. Basically, they wanted to make Bloodborne their IP FromSoftware. FromSoftware should have never done that because then they would have been able to do whatever they want in the right manner with it. But that's okay. It ended up turning out for the best, anyways, because we got Elden Ring after that and other things. So and Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. Okay, we have huge respect for Miyazaki, and we were able to work with him again. He said Bloodborne is one of his best games. For software not really considering Elden Ring 2 development, they don't really need to. They need to work on another game. I think they should do that. So, in an interview with Game Informer back in 2012, Yoshida gave more detail on Sony's decision not to localize, I don't really need this, Demon Souls for the West, admitting that he didn't get the appeal at first. Even he admitted that. From my personal experience with Demon Souls, when it was close to final, I spent close to 2 hours playing it, and after 2 hours, I was still standing at the beginning of the game, he recalled at the time. I said, this is crap. This is an unbelievably bad game, so I put it aside. You know one thing I do like about Yoshida? At least he's honest. Luckily, third-party publishers Atlus in North America and Namco in Europe stepped in, and it really became a great hit outside of Japan. We definitely dropped the ball from a publishing standpoint. Including studio management side, we were not able to see the value of the product we were making. Guys, so I like that he's admitting that because he's saying we too, because it was just him and a lot of other people as well. That's what I like to call intellectual honesty and admitting that we dropped the ball. Respect for him for that. I'm not going to criticize him because he was just honest about making a mistake. He didn't see it. Either you could or you couldn't. So, but as far as like the staff treating and all that, yeah, that's a different story. But that's something to think about. Now, this says a lot about Bloodborne. So that means that Miyazaki doesn't want Sony to touch Bloodborne without FromSoftware's vision. Demon Souls didn't sell that well on PlayStation 5, and it shouldn't have been priced at $69. Former PlayStation, you know what? No. Let's go to this other one real quick. FromSoftware Miyazaki responds to calls for Bloodborne remake on PlayStation 5. I have a lot of great memories for that game. While everyone has Elden Ring on their mind today with the official unveiling of Shadow of the Erdtree, this was like last year, by the way. It wasn't too long ago. There's another FromSoftware title that the fans are still hungry for, Bloodborne, and today the game's director finally acknowledged the overwhelming fan demand for a remake, right? In an interview with IGN, Hidetaka Miyazaki about the Shadow of Erdtree DLC. When asked Miyazaki about the possibility of Bloodborne remake, he deflected. Unfortunately, I've said this in an interview. It's not in my place to talk about Bloodborne specifically, he said. We simply don't own the IP at FromSoftware. For me personally, it was a great project and I have a lot of great memories for that game, but we're not at liberty to speak on it. He's just respecting that he gave the IP aspect to Sony, but he still doesn't want them to touch it. We're going to get to that later on. But Miyazaki shared a few more thoughts with Eurogamer, acknowledging it made him very happy to see so many fans passionate about Bloodborne, and suggesting the game would benefit for released on a more modern hardware. And if you guys didn't know, they striked down the Bloodborne 60 frames per second mod and game on PC, so people can't do that. I think having this is what he said though. This is how you know that he wants to kind of do a Bloodborne remake on PlayStation 6. He wants to wait 2 generations to jump, just like Demon Souls on PS3 to PS5 appeared again for the remake. This the vision that he has for that. It's right here. I think having new hardware is definitely a part of what gives these remakes value, Miyazaki said. Things you weren't able to achieve on previous generations of hardware. Ways you weren't able to render specific expressions. New hardware sometimes makes it possible. However, I wouldn't say that that's be all and end all. I think purely from a user perspective, modern hardware will allow more players to appreciate all the games. And so it ends up being a simple reason, but as a fellow player, I think the accessibility is important. I think that can be a driving force between bringing an old game to a new platform. So that's it. No promises, no hints of anything on the works, but he's going to comment about it later on. And to hear Miyazaki tell it, the decision isn't even really up to FromSoftware. It's entirely on Sony, who owns Bloodborne. In stark contrast, we recently learned that publisher Bandai Namco switched the ownership of its trademark on Elden Ring fully to FromSoftware, meaning the developer now has full control over what they do with the license. It seems highly unlikely Sony would ever do the same for Bloodborne, however. Possibly, yeah. I can believe that. They don't want to give up that power. So, right here, former PlayStation president Shuhei Yoshida theorizes that Hidetaka Miyazaki personal connection to Bloodborne might explain why there's been no remaster, PC port, or sequel. Right? Now watch this right here. Shuhei Yoshida's theory on Bloodborne and its future. Shuhei Yoshida, the former president of Sony Interactive Entertainment, recently shared his personal theory on the matter during an interview on Kind of Funny's Game Cast podcast. According to Yoshida, the answer might lie with Miyazaki himself. People wonder why we haven't really done anything, Yoshida said. My theory is because I remember Miyazaki saw and really loved Bloodborne, what he created. So I think he's interested, but he is so successful and he is so busy, so he cannot do it himself. But he doesn't want anyone else to touch it, so that's my theory. And the PlayStation team respects his wish, so this is my guess. I'm not revealing any secret information. Yoshida left Sony this month after spending over 3 decades at the company and remains a highly respected figure in the industry. While he made it clear that he wasn't revealing any insider information, his perspective might offer a clue about why Bloodborne remains untouched. Of course, this doesn't mean fans should give up hope entirely. Sony's silence doesn't necessarily mean they've ruled out the future plans for Bloodborne, but it's becoming increasingly unclear if we'll see anything related to the franchise during the current generation. Yeah, because like Miyazaki said, I would rather wait 2 generations. You're not going to see a huge jump if you're going from PS4 to PS5. I would rather wait from PS4 to PS6 like we waited for PS3 to PS5 to see the Demon Souls remake. And Miyazaki wants to be involved. He doesn't just want to give it to Bluepoint with him not being involved in it. He might want to do some things with it and change around some things. So there's like this mutual thing here. Yeah, you have the IP, but don't touch it without me. This seems to be the thing. Because people always wanted answers for this. Now we have it. So that's kind of my thing on this. But going back to this, it kind of makes sense with this. FromSoftware didn't want Sony to publish Dark Souls as it was disappointed by how Demon Souls was treated. So they did give them the publishing rights for Bloodborne. But at the end of the day, I think when it comes to a Bloodborne remake, he doesn't want it to just be something thrown as like a one-to-one remake. I think he really wants to change around some things. Because a lot of people were complaining about the in-game chalice dungeons, and I remember doing those, and it had kind of like they would have rather have more content, more covenants, and all that. So who knows what they can do with a remake? It may not be a one-to-one. I think he wants to do more and fill it out and do more things. So and show off some more stuff, right? Just think about it, like because if I knew that I had to wait for him to get involved, I would rather wait because we still have so much content in this world. It's okay. And I think that we want to include PC in that. But knowing Sony, they're going to do what they're doing with Demon Souls, and they're going to try to lock it to the PS6, and then the PC players might get it later. But I think when it comes to that, they should include the PC. It's not going to hurt their console, and they would gain a bigger respect for the PC community. And I think that would make things more positive. Because the PC community is definitely not happy about not getting Bloodborne. I know that for sure. and it would have sold millions. It's not something you're going to sit there and try to pirate. It's gonna be an online game too. People like the PvP. People like to be online on PC. Of course, people would try that, but there's a way to, remedy that. But at the end of the day, this is my thoughts about this, because I know people probably wanted to hear about this. So this just came up not too long ago, literally on the 19th, in the late afternoon. So that's what I kind of have to say about this. So thank God that From Software made the right decisions at the beginning, because we would not be here where we're at now with the company and the leaps that they've made and the jumps that they've made, because they can only get better. So like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think about this. All right, guys. Peace out.